Security. Good evening, everybody. I think it's very late. We have had a long day, but still, it's really a pleasure to, based on what Stephanie Lawrence said, just to present what we in that case is GIZ and KfW are jointly doing. In this example, we chose Kampala, Uganda, to see how this idea of this checklist and this pro-poor approach and low-cost technologies is actually implemented. So, yeah, just continue. Very briefly, just to give you an idea, for those of you who don't know Kampala, Uganda, I mean, this is the situation, rather sizable town, 1.8 million inhabitants. During daytime, it's probably double or triple the size, with a high population growth. I think this applies to a lot of towns in Sub-Saharan Africa. Next slide, please. This, again, a typical situation then in the low-income areas, peri-urban areas, or even slum areas, whatever you want to call them. The one thing there, this issue with the majority of people being tenants is important with regard to the technology you implement and with regards to things you do to a plot which would then benefit the owner, who would immediately increase the rent and would thereby crowd out the population we actually want to target. So that is important there to keep in mind, for instance. So living conditions, I mean, you know these facts and figures. I mean, they do not vary a lot between peri-urban areas in mega cities in Sub-Saharan Africa. I think in general the access to, in particular, sanitation is very poor. The living conditions, as you can imagine there, is really severe. So obviously there is need to do something there. Now, in addition to what my previous speaker said, I mean, the German side has really over the last years developed this access getting more focus on pro-poor. What we should not forget is, I mean, the partner side, so to say. I mean, the partners who are sitting here from the governments in particular. I mean, you are the ones to then implement this project. I mean, you are the ones to put these checklist ideas, so to say, into policy and into implementation. And this is an area where we, GIZ and us on the ground, sit and discuss with you, with the partner side, and try as much as we can to be convincible, so to say. And that is one area, one other reasons why we choose this example of Kampala, because there the government in particular, and then the water utility, and even the city council is very much, so to say, has very much in particular sanitation and water supply in peri-urban areas in their focus. Okay, next one. So okay. This is just one slide, just another is animated. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, stop there. Just to give you a very rough idea, I mean, what is, I mean, this is not the total portfolio we have there, but this is a couple of examples for Kampala which have actually an impact on the pro-poor approach, because you can't have a pro-poor approach if you don't have proper infrastructure in place. Now, this applies obviously to water, since you need a water system, and with regards to sanitation, at least you need treatment plants and the like. So what we're currently doing is, you see the upper project is a rather sizable project. We do what we call Mutual Alliance Initiative with some other banks and EU, where we basically concentrate on the water supply system and the sanitation sewer system in Kampala. The next one in the middle, very similar, which we do financing jointly with the EU ITF funds and then the African Development Bank, again concentrating really on sewer treatment plants and the like. And those of you who know Kampala and those of you who know the quality of Lake Victoria these days is really going down I was tempted to say down the drain. I mean, its quality is very low, very poor. So obviously, I mean, if I remember correctly, I think only 8% of the sludge is treated from Kampala. The rest goes basically straight into the lake. So obviously one has to do something there. And the last part, this is where, in particular, GIZ focuses on, that is this whole issue of sector reform, TA for economic service, for service providers, capacity building, and the like. So this is, as my previous speaker rightly said, I mean, this is, so to say, then the umbrella under which all this happens. Now, this is the background where we started off with. Now, next slide, please. What you can see here, that's what we said with regards to the policy targets of the Ugandan government, and that is very interesting. So clearly the government said, yes, we want to use scarce donor funds, and this is grant funds in that case, to use explicitly for these poor income areas, low income areas. So you see the figures as I said, they are from the Ugandan side, not from us. So this is for us an excellent basis, so to say, to then start implementing this approach. Next one, and next one, this is animated. Sorry for this animation, I don't know where it comes from. One more, I think. Yeah, thanks very much. So basically, when we discuss upscaling, so we start from the top, so to say, where we have the objectives, and this is now the next. Let me just go here. The next areas. This is what we then concentrate on in this pro approach. Obviously, on-site sanitation is hardly anything there. We do a lot in terms of public and community shared toilets. Fecal sludge management is something which has, in most cases, to my knowledge, more or less been neglected. I mean, this is really a serious problem, not only in Kampala but elsewhere. A very difficult one, so to say, but I'll come to that one later anyhow. And the other one is the water supply, where we basically work in Uganda, and some of you might know this one in particular with prepaid meters is a very successful approach. Now, this red block here, so to say, is where we come in with, in particular with technical assistance, because we have a lot of players in here. And that is the other challenge with regards to sanitation, whereas in the water supply area we normally deal with the utility, and the utility in this case, National Water and Sewage Corporation in Uganda, is quite a good one. It's really on the continent even, I would say, outstanding. So that one is moving relatively good. With regards to municipalities, that I don't want to offend anybody, but I think even in Germany I can say this, working with municipalities is not always easy. Now in this case, sanitation, in particular on-site sanitation, not sewered sanitation, is under the jurisdiction of the KCCA, the Kampala City Council Authority. Now we have had numerous discussions with them, and there is really now improvement in terms of they have set up a unit, high-ranking, high-qualified staff in there to in particular focus on this sanitation issue. So this is where then, as I said, this red block is to the challenge really is then to get all these different players together. In particular, one should not forget, I mean, we have community participation in there as well. So this is quite a challenge. What my previous speaker said, that's right. I mean, we want to concentrate more on hygiene, social marketing campaigns and the like. But in particular, what we want to do, we would like to, different to what most donors do. I mean, I mean, social marketing campaigns is not really new, but normally they last for the duration of a project. So if a project is finalized after 5 years, off we go, and that's it. So what we would quite like to do here, to really, let's say, embed this social marketing awareness creation thing within the policy of the ministry and of the municipality, plus having a budget line from the national budget, so to say, for these purposes. Next one. Now, what have we done so far? Just one. I think we have to press one more. Yeah. So this is where we currently are with regards to water supply. I mean, as I said, these prepaid meters is functioning very nicely. I don't know about your countries, so those of you who are not from Uganda. Prepaid meters is a beautiful thing. We have, for example, with this one, we managed to get, or they managed, not really, sorry, I mean, they managed to get the price down by 80%, and it's still cost covering. So any prepaid meter is a profit center in itself, right? What we know, however, in other countries we have tried it, or other governments have tried it, it's difficult. I mean, it doesn't work everywhere, but still I think this is an approach one should follow. Water price, I mean, what you can see from the water consumption has increased. So this is all fine and beautiful. So that one we have done. And now actually we go for upscaling. Upscaling means we have fresh funding available. The government is committed. So based on these experiences, we will now really go for implementation at scale, so to say. Now, next slide, please. And one more. So, now, with regards to sanitation, it's a similar story. I mean, we have jointly there, we have made our experiences. We have started pilot schemes within the low-income areas, and it has overall been not always successful. But I mean, I think we could draw a lot of conclusions from that one. So we have an excellent basis now for. I mean, when I say we, it's basically okay. Sorry, it's the government, it's the utility, and then supported by us, so all of us, so to say, an excellent basis again for going large scale. There is, next one please. There is one exception, going large scale, and this is an area, I mean, fecal sludge management, I think most of you know, this is difficult at large scale. We're not talking pilots anymore. Large scales mean 800,000, 1 million people. So what we currently have in mind, Kampala has partly, of course, a sewer network. So some of the low-income areas we can basically connect directly to the sewer. But in general, we have a situation that, I mean, this is then the type of sanitation facilities which will be financed, which will be implemented, which is partly already there. And then we have this whole issue of collection. Now, having in mind, let's say 1 million people, right, where you have to collect all this.
1 minute?
Yeah, it's my last slide anyhow, thank you very much. It's where you have to collect the sludge from 1 million people on a daily basis. It's a huge task. It's a huge task. What we are trying to do jointly with the Ugandan side, to set up some sort of incentive scheme, in particular for those guys here. I mean, those are the crucial ones. What we see so far, they're running, I mean, on private basis, sludge tankers and the like, even down to the small, what they call Uga bucks here. But the problem is they collect it and dump it somewhere else, most likely into the lake. So nothing has been won. So we want to actually come with the utility from the other side. I mean, basically the utility is running the treatment, so give incentives to those people here to at least make sure that they dump into these facilities where the sludge can be properly treated. Now, this is something where we currently do a final study, so to say, to get the appropriate incentive scheme. But on that, in principle, we are quite optimistic that we get there. All right, and that was, I think, yeah, the last one. Thanks very much for your attention.
Thank you. Are there any questions concerning the two last presentations? The gentleman over here.
Yeah, thank you. My question, just want to confirm about the shared sanitation. Is it free or they pay token when they use the facilities? Is it the pay token or is free usage?
The sanitation?
The shared facilities?
No, they have to pay. People have to pay.
Any other questions? The lady over there.
Hi, I just need to find out the funding structure for your program. Do you guys fund private sector, or does it have to be linked to government programs, especially for sanitation? Does BMZ do the funding, or you get funding to do this project from somewhere else that will need to be linked to government for the program to work? How do you involve private sector?
Okay, yeah, thanks very much for this question. Now, the funding actually, I mean, the funding for us, KfW, in this particular case, since we deal with grants, comes from our federal government, right? Now, it's then from our federal government, they sit with the Ugandan government in that case and basically negotiate, so to say, on a certain amount of money for a certain type of projects. Then, from there on, we come in as the implementer, so to say, where we sit with the partner side, with the utility and the municipality and others, to define and agree upon the project, right? What we then do finance is actually the civil works, the civil works, the contractors, the consultants, and I don't know what, including, for example, incentives for sanitation. We do finance the awareness campaigns and the like. There is a contribution from the partner side. It varies from 10 to 20%. In this case, could be more, plus possibly from the communities. Now, with regards to the involvement of the private sector, that is an interesting question. In general, it depends a bit on the government. Now, in governments, with regards to Uganda, what we see is that in particular for this whole issue of social marketing awareness creation, I think one could not do without, in particular, NGOs who are active on the ground, and there are many on the ground, since they know their people, they know what is needed, and so on and so forth. So they will be then included into this setup.
Yes, we have another question. Mr. Montano.
Thank you very much. Listening to the presentation, I gather that in the case of Uganda, for instance, and the source being Lake Victoria, probably the per capita investment criterion that we used in the choice of the project supported, you know, might be reasonable. Now, but if you want to go to other places, and one of your objectives is to target, you know, poor areas, you know, for the investment, I reckon that you may get to a place where there might be need to fund maybe shallow boreholes or wells or something like that may probably make the per capita investment a little bit higher. May I know if you do or you plan to fund such projects based on needs, and if so, if maybe one can know how many such boreholes or something like that you have funded in the past. I don't know if I make myself understood.
Thanks very much. Yeah, let me try to answer. I mean, it's an important point you raised. I mean, this issue of low-cost technology. I mean, what is actually low-cost technology? I mean, in general, I would say it differs on the place you go. I mean, there might be situations when, let's say, an on-site sanitation solution is probably more expensive than collecting somebody to a sewer if it's densely populated in the sewers there anyhow. What the focus is with regards to trying to reduce the cost per capita, and by that getting more people access to water and sanitation per euro spent from the German government, is really that one should, different to what we did in the past, focus more on peri-urban areas, but not forgetting, so to say, what I said initially. I mean, that with regards to water supply, for example, you need a functioning system. I mean, you still need somewhere an intake, you still need somewhere a treatment plant. But the question is, what do you do thereafter? Would you still finance house connections for water? No, we don't. Yeah. With regards to sewer systems, do we still finance complex sewer systems? Yes, in some cases, as I've presented in Kampala, we do, since it's necessary. Such a town you can't do without. In other towns, secondary towns, in the neighboring countries, we don't do it anymore. So that really depends. But there, the challenge is to convince the partner side to go for these low-cost technologies. Now, with regards to, I'm not sure whether I got your question right with regards to the shallow wells. I mean, at the end of the day, it depends on the site. I mean, there might be sites where a shallow well might make sense. I have my doubt, but anyhow. But that one, in principle, is difficult to answer. Thank you.
Just to complement on that, it's exactly how Andreas Holtkotte is saying. Like, the criteria is in place. We are looking for projects which do use low-cost technologies. But if you do have a special case where actually the decentralized system is more expensive, then we will of course also finance that, because in some cases you will find a situation where it's not possible to provide the target groups, the poor, with any other system, and therefore we are also taking into consideration all those sustainability and environmental aspects, of course.
Okay, I believe there was one more question over there. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair Lady. Mine is really not a question, but just for information. I concur with your presentation that working with the municipalities is quite difficult. And one of the things that I gather from this presentation is that in terms of sanitation, there are basic things that can be done to improve sanitation in our small urban centers. I work for the Lake Victoria Basin Commission and in the East African, and we have a program that we are implementing on water and sanitation, trying to improve sanitation in small secondary urban centers. And despite the fact that there is a huge investment that is being put in place, but the basic understanding of sanitation at the lower level is not there. So sometimes the challenge is you might put those big, huge investments, and you put them there, but people don't use them because they are not sensitized enough to understand even the mechanism of those those huge investments that are being put. And therefore, personally, I think I'm very encouraged on what SuSanA is doing, and I think this is one of the organizations that can really assist us in terms of, creating awareness at the local level, so that by the time you bring the hardware that my colleague was talking about here, already the software in terms of even the mindset of the people has been changed. Because really the challenge is the mindset of the people. You look at issues like solid waste management, you really do not require huge investment to manage those. But you go to small towns, like there's a small town, my friend from Kampala, it's called Mayuge, we are dealing there. And you find a lot of polybags there. You really do not require huge investment to control that. But people are not doing it. So really, I think what SuSanA is doing is quite commendable. And of course, GIZ is also, we are trying to work with, to negotiate with them to see whether they can actually assist us to complement the efforts that we are doing through the African Development Bank, so that we can even address issues of sanitation, especially on transboundary towns, because again we have towns that cut across. For example, in between Kenya and Uganda, there is a town called Busia, which needs to be addressed in terms of sanitation. You cannot handle sanitation on one side of the town and be able to handle it on the, not handle it on the other side of the town. And therefore, I think the initiative is quite appreciative. I thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. We now move from Germany.